What's up, guys? I'm about to edit one of our newer episodes, and I know that you guys don't use Logic Pro, but it's somewhat similar to GarageBand. And nevertheless, I feel like if you see some of the changes that I make and how I have things organized, it might just give you some ideas for the editing that you guys have to do for your show. So this is the full episode. You know, my template has our background music and our intro already there, ready to go, and I have some extra tracks if I need to throw in some sound bites and shit like that. But everything's already ready. It's always there. That way I don't have to add shit every single episode. And here is me and Paul's vocal tracks from the recording. So I'm going to zoom in to the very beginning and get things rolling. I have to change a few things. This is, let's see, I believe that Logic or GarageBand has a limiter like this, or excuse me, a meter. And I always have this meter open to check my sound levels and make sure it's not too loud, too soft. I'll just start playing. You can see how it changes.
Good day, Galaxy.
Sometimes I keep that ridiculous shit in there because it's funny. But basically what I'm doing is we record it live, so we're talking over the intro, so I'm muting some of these parts that are here in the beginning. No, I don't want to hear that shit.
Good day, Galaxy. What are you going to do? Piss?
So here's what's going to happen. When I want to get sound levels, I pick a spot where someone's talking for a good amount of time. You can see on Mopar's track here that he's rambling for a little bit. I'm going to select his track, and you can see my list of plugins here on the side. It kind of looks like a lot, but I'm going to show you what I have going on. Let's mute them all at once, and we'll go through them one by one. Most important thing, I'll solo this so you can hear it. Most important thing is the EQ.
We'll see what happens. So what's going on in today's society?
Now, the mics that we use are very, I wouldn't say they're low-end heavy, but they aren't as present as I usually like. So what I have going on in my EQ here is a big low cut at 140, and it will change based on the person's voice, but usually between 120 and 160. A very hard high-pass filter here at the bottom seems to do the trick. A little bit of a low cut, about 500, just to bring down a little bit of the mids, and then a nice shelf here to give more presence. And depending on the mic, sometimes I lower this or get rid of it altogether. But like I said, for our mics, it seems to work best to have this little shelf here. Let me play without this low filter in here so you can hear what it sounds like.
We'll see what happens. So what's going on in today's society? Oh, did you know? I know we're not fucking hockey podcast.
So it might sound, it sounds to me a little bit like it has like more of a lower end presence, kind of like radio broadcasters do. But the problem is that depending on where someone's listening to this, it can get really muddy really quick. And the reason I came up with this template is because I've checked things on my headphones, on my mixing headphones, on my speakers, in my car, on my phone, etc., etc. And I came to this conclusion really that if there's too much low end, it's just going to get muddy. So what I do is I have this set about 140. And then I do have a bump here too. So the low end's getting raised, but only the part that I want, which is right about here. And it's getting a hard cut past that. That way it's not getting rumbly or anything.
We'll see what happens. So what's going on in today's society?
And I still have enough low end that I want, and it's not getting out of control. So that's kind of how I have it. Next is my first gate. Let me find a spot where he's not talking. You can see the gate in action.
It's like 20.
So he'll stop talking right here, and I have a gate. And I'll adjust this so I can hear myself, the other mic coming through this mic. So I'll boost the gate up just a little bit. And this is the first gate. I have two. So this one is a hard gate, but I'm not going to bring the threshold up too high because I want my other one, which is here at the end. It's It's an expander actually, so it's a softer knee right here. It's not exactly a hard cutoff, but I can crank the threshold up a little bit too, and I'll see what that looks like.
Well, we had
Right about
actually decently
here.
nice, and then I woke up this morning and it was like 20. It was like, man, I was getting used to the other shit. Go back.
So now you can hear that my other mic is pretty much not coming in at all, and I can see where the input is too. So I know when he's talking,
High 40.
I'm up here,
Actually decently nice, and then I woke up this
and that gives me kind of idea of where I want the knee to go, the threshold to go. Deesser, super important.
woke up this morning and it was like 20.
Again, I have it set,
Man, I was
and then I
getting
adjust the
used to the other
threshold to,
shit. Go back.
you can see the blue bar is the input, and let me go up here.
Oh, did you know? I know we're not
As I bring this down,
hockeypodcast.org.
you hear,
but did
you
know
can see the
that
Deesser
Blue
working.
Jackets are
So I want to
now
make sure that
on
it's
winning streak?
doing what it needs to do, but it's not too cranked,
I think it's 50.
because if I bring it all the way down, he's going to sound super muffled.
The NHL record is one more.
So you just need a little bit.
So if they win, I think tomorrow night.
I'm going to skip these two for a second. The biggest and most important one, compression, EQ, and a de-esser is the three basics. Like, you have to have those on your vocal tracks for the show, no matter what. The compressor is the most important thing, because what it's going to do is level out the voice. And I've seen some people do, like, they'll go in, see if I turn automation on. Like, you could see the waveforms on his track where it's louder here and softer here. And I've actually seen people go in and do automation, and like they'll click here with these and they'll raise this part up, and then they want this part to come back down because he talks softer, and then this part needs to come back up. And if you do that through the whole track, that's so time consuming and it's just a waste. Let me delete this so it's not printed on here. Go away. Turn the automation off. That is so tedious and so ridiculous. And what I do is with the compressor here is I adjust the input to where I want it to, which raises all the softer parts, and then I crank down on the output, which will compress the louder parts, hence the compression, the term, and it balances it out. And this is the one I use. There's tons of different ones, but this is just how I do it. So let's listen here.
There's just no snow. It's supposed to snow, I think, tomorrow. So.
And as
I
you
gotta drive
listen,
to
you can
or
see it working here.
Cleveland. So it could be feet of snow up there, but I don't know what the fuck to expect. So.
And the general loudness meter, that's why I have this thing open still in the side. It's a general -16 loudness units, and that's just a unit that they made up to measure loudness. So I try to keep, when people are talking, right about 16. If it goes over a little bit, I don't mind that, but I just don't want it to be, if it's too low at like -20, that's bad.
We'll see what happens.
It's too quiet.
So what's going on in today's society?
So you see I'm hitting 14. It's a little
did you
too much.
know-
I'll
I know
crank
we're
this
not
output
fucking
down a little bit.
hockeypodcast.org, but did you know?
And the reason that the compression is so important, because when a person's talking loudly, you might be able to hear them. I hear this in my car when I listen to other shows. You might be able to hear them just fine, but once they quiet down, you lose it. And I've been in the car and like trying to drive, and when they get quiet, you have to crank the volume up just to hear what they're saying. And then once they talk loud again, it like blows your eardrums out, and you have to crank it back down. The compressor just levels all that out. That way you don't have to worry about it. And the beauty of using the compressor instead of automating, or instead of using what's called a vocal rider, which is another type of plugin, is that once you get the level set, the compressor does the work for you throughout the entire track. So you don't have to sit there and go through detail and change every single thing. It's just, it does the work for you. That's the point of all these plugins, is just to make your job as easy as possible. After the compressor here on my chain, I have a few EQs. Now what's going on is these are kind of working alongside the de-esser, these first two, where I've noticed a lot of super high S and bright S sounds from microphones is about between 4.5 to 5K and between 8 and 10K. So again, these get adjusted. This one's already set for Paul's voice, which is good. So I have a very, very, very skinny notch filter here at 5,000 hertz and at 10,000 hertz, 5K and 10K. So it's helping the de-esser get rid of those harsh sounds. And then the last one, after all the harsh sounds that I don't want have been cut, the last EQ I have here is another little shelf. and it just brightens up the vocals. Like I said, this mic is, I wouldn't say, it's more dull. It's an SM57, so it's not as bright. So after I've cut out the garbage, I have another shelf that brightens it up a little bit. And for most actual mics, I turn this one off because I don't want it to be basically bring out the harsh sounds that I just cut. I don't want that to happen. But for Paul especially, I keep that one on there. The last one. This is the most amazing plugin that I have. It's a noise suppressor for dialogue, and it just gets rid of all the background noise. Let's play something here.
Well, we had decent days last couple days because it was like mid 40s, high 40s. So it was actually decently nice. And then I woke up this morning and it was like 20. And you're just like, man, society. Oh, did you know? I know we're not fucking hockey pod.
So I'm gonna play. Basically what this is doing is suggesting you where I always use a suggest function here. Suggesting you where the noise reduction needs to happen at, and it will automatically kind of hit those in there for you, and then you adjust the threshold here. So listen to what's going on without this on. You can hear a lot of the room echo.
Oh, did you know? I know we're not fucking hockeypodcast.org, but did you know the Columbus Blue Jackets are in like the best win?
And once I turn it on, it just gets rid of all that, and it gives you a very close up, front and center vocal sound. And it's especially useful for more like condenser mics, like the Blue Yeti, which if you've ever used one of those, picks up so much extra sound, so much room sound. I mean, this WNS plugin just does everything that I need it to do. And occasionally, I have another one here before it, the NS1. It's more harsh. I shouldn't say harsh. It cuts a lot harder than the WNS. So if it's really bad, sometimes I'll use this one, but usually just the WNS is all I need. Now, in terms of mixing, I have 2 vocal tracks, mine and Paul's. I mix them. I make sure each of those is set as they need to be individually. So I'll solo mine and I'll mix it, solo his, mix it. And then the important thing is making sure that those two sound good together. And that's where the master chain comes in. So if you look over here, this left side is all the plugins that are active for a particular track that I have highlighted. So this is mine, this is Paul's, this is the music. You can see that they're different. The bar on the right is the master channel. So this is the main output. And you see I have a few plugins on here too. The main thing is the limiter that I have on here. So basically, the limiter is going to prevent you from going past a certain decibel level. So the ceiling here on the side, I have it set to negative 0.5. That's just what I prefer. A lot of people do 1. You can change it basically to whatever you want. And then the threshold will make all of the tracks together louder up to the ceiling that you've set. And you have to listen. I have it set to 4, and that's what I found is just the best for how I mix. But you have to listen through and crank it up to a certain point where it's not overly loud and like distorted, but that it's not too quiet either. And you can hear the difference here.
It's really weird because as you finish the sip, it feels like it's going to give you a bit.
Now, as I crank this up, you're going to hear it get louder, but also try to compress itself, and it just does not sound good at all.
Some up front, but then like Commander said, it's just kind of gone.
Like here's the bitterness. No way. Fuck that. This would be
like you can hear that it's louder there, but it's so distorted because it's trying to bring the volume up and then compress at the same time. So this is just one thing that you want to adjust. I mean, like everything, listen and adjust as you go, but have it set to where it's loud enough, it's reaching that ceiling, but it's not distorting it, and it's good to go. And the limiter and like all these plugins on the master track is really what helps glue the whole episode together. So if you're mixing things separately and then you don't do anything with your output or your master chain, that's where you're going to fall into issues where one voice is too loud and the other one's too quiet, or maybe if you solo the second voice, it sounds fine on its own, but once you put it in context with the other voices, it's just getting buried. The stuff on the master chain is going to help balance those things out, and like I always say, it glues things together. It's a fancy audio term for the limiter. gluing everything together. And then I'm always checking my meter here. One other interesting thing too is for the music that we have. I know a lot of people don't have background music, but the same concept will apply for your intro music. If you're talking over your intro, something that's super, super, super important. It's called a sidechain, and I'll show you what that means here. So basically, I need to change these settings, how I like it to be go. The sidechain, it's a compressor on the music track, and I have it set so just like the other compressor on the vocal track, it's going to basically bring down the volume. But what's going on is that it's getting triggered. It's called a sidechain, and it's called a bus here. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but I have my 2 vocal tracks are sending audio into this bus. It's like a digital plugin that kind of stays inside the DAW. And the compressor is only getting triggered by the audio levels from the vocals. So if we're not talking, the music stays as it is. And once we start talking, the sidechain is triggering and the compressor starts working. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. So if I mute both of us, you can hear the music going, totally fine. Nothing's happening on the compressor. And once I activate these, you'll see it start to work.
Ohio State, yeah.
Ohio State's college. So.
They're bigger than all the other ones put together.
True.
Except for the Cavs.
And
you can hear too while it's going that
AA, whatever it's called.
The music will start to come back up a little bit in between our sentences. Not too loud, but then once we start talking, it's still present, but it's basically letting our voices take precedence over the music. But it's not burying it too. And it's the same thing where you don't want to actually go in and automate and start to make a bunch of adjustments here to the track itself. Let the sidechain do the work for you because it lets the music still be present, but lets the voices really come through with that.
So that's kind of fun.
That's cool.
And you'll see as I adjust this threshold, it will squash the music more. Here, as I bring it down, you can see it
I got
working.
my Cleveland socks on.
So almost to the point where once we're talking that you can't hear the music at all. And that's not, we have it as background music, so that's a little too much. So again, it's something that where you kind of have to adjust the threshold to it's where you like it.
From Cleveland stupor.
Stubborn assholes. Oh yeah, so I'm gonna Cleveland High if you guys.
And you might hear some extra echo there. It's because I haven't mixed my track yet. I'm just doing this as an example. But the sidechain is really important for vocals, for vocals interacting with music, I should say. And then I have the same thing going on with our intro music here. It's mainly just the music itself, but once we start talking at the end, you'll be able to hear it. Again, here's the compressor. Once we come in, you'll be able to hear the difference.
Good day, Galaxy. What are you gonna do? Pissed?
I was gonna switch it up for once and do the thing.
Oh. You try it. Go.
Good day, Galaxy.
So you can hear the music is really, the intro music is really taking everything over until we start to come in.
May the force be with us. Fucking A.
Good day, Galaxy. What are you gonna do? Pissed?
And when you hear the cheering and everything like that sound effects and everything, you can still hear that. Like it doesn't get buried. It's just letting the voices really shine through over that. And another reason for that too is that I have, this argument between mono and stereo. My music tracks are all in stereo. You can see here I have an option to alternate between mono and stereo. My music is set to stereo and my voices are set to mono. What's going on is basically all mono tracks stay right in the center. If you think of an audio spectrum going from the left headphone all the way to the right headphone, mono tracks stay in the center. Stereo tracks fill up the entire spectrum. And when the sidechain's working, the voices are compressing that music in the center, but some of that music is still coming through as a stereo channel in the left and the right headphones. So it lets you still be able to hear it well while not losing what the voices are saying. So I hope that makes sense. I know I went through a lot of stuff and pretty quick, but if you want to get down and dirty with mixing on your own, this is kind of a run through of what my template looks like. GarageBand doesn't have quite as many options, but it does have a lot to offer. And if you're looking to upgrade and you want to, if you're thinking about spending a little bit of money on your show, I would say instead of getting new microphones or something, you might want to buy Logic and take the time to learn it And I think that would be a better investment for post-production reasons other than just trying to get new equipment. Just spend some time on the software. So hope that helps. If you have any questions, obviously let me know. This was very quick, but I'm here to answer any other questions, solve any other issues that you may have. Alrighty.